So I'd like you now to welcome the General Secretary of the RMT, Bob Crow.
Comrade Chair, comrades, obviously there's been a bit of bad luck with YouTube today, and there's been a bit of bad luck with getting visas for the South African comrades. It ain't all bad luck, by the way, just to let you know, for those people who have been stuck in meetings all day, that Millwall won 4-1 away today. Also to tell you, they're the highest goal scorers in Britain, in any league in Britain at the moment in time. Very odd that Millwall described as scorers. They never hardly score at all. But they are scoring very well today. So that's what happens sometimes when you get a bit of confidence. And I feel the confidence is rising amongst the trade union movement and amongst working men and working women. Brothers and sisters, the demonstration that we had 2 weeks ago and the demonstration we had 18 months ago were two huge successes. The fact is, if you look at the demonstration, particularly 2 weeks ago, not just me saying this, but a number of people have said to me how young it was, the amount of new young faces on there. For example, I never asked anyone in my family to go. I had one RMT member, my wife, she was on the demo. The boy who was a railway worker, RMT, he was on the demo. The daughter, who was an RMT member, she was on the demo. My other daughter, NUT, she was on the demo. And my daughter-in-law, NASUWT, was on the demo as well. And the other daughter, who was an NUT member, couldn't go on it because she was looking after all the grandchildren. But it was a young turnout. And the fact of the matter is, people say, what do you get from demonstrations? Well, marching feet make history. The reality is, examples like Vietnam, where people marched, the point of view was got over and the victory was made. The reality is, at the end of the day, it can't be just marching for the sake of it. What we've got to have is marching as part of a strategy to reverse the attacks taking place on us by this Con-Dem government. By the way, I was sickened when I heard Ed Miliband say in the Hyde Park that under Labour there'd be cuts, but they won't be as severe. Like going into hospital and having your arms and legs being told by the surgeon being cut off, and the next day the surgeon saying, we're only cutting your arms off, and you think you've won a victory because you've kept your legs, but you walk out with no arms. That's what the reality is of New Labour. They've got no strategy. All New Labour is basically hoping that the Con-Dem do so badly that they'll be re-elected, but they will continue to carry out the same policies of multinationals and big bosses. Let's be absolutely clear. Let's not spend our time worrying about those three political parties. But let's be absolutely clear what they stand for. They all support privatisation. They all support keeping anti-trade union laws, and they all support PFIs, and they all support illegal wars around the world. That's the reality. There might be some minute detail, but their principles are exactly the same. So therefore, brothers and sisters, we have to say to ourselves what we're doing, because of course we will demonstrate and we'll march again every time that there needs to be a march and a demonstration. But there's no point in just having another march for the future it works. We've got to put into practice now what workers are going to be doing on November 14th in a number of countries around Europe, and that's walking off the job and taking strike action. That's what we've got to do. I sat on executive committees in my union when there's been disagreements between me and the General Secretary. When we wanted to call a strike, and the General Secretary said, no, we don't want one, because it's illegal. And we say it is illegal. Never mind what the judges say, it's about whether it's morally right for working men and working women. And many a time the General Secretary at an EC meeting has opened the doors and all of a sudden rolled in these solicitors with wigs on to tell us the reasons why we can't go on strike. I was at the General Council 2 weeks ago when I said that when are we going to implement, not just me, people from PCS, Unite, POA, arguing the case that we should be looking at the resolution number 5. And we said, when are we going to look at the practicalities of calling a general strike? And they said, well, what would you like to do first of all, then, Bob? I said, what I'd like to do first of all is bring John Henry QC and Professor Keith Ewing in to explain that we can have a general strike so we can get over that hurdle. Get over that hurdle. And there was a number of people that got up and said, we're going to be bringing solicitors into boardrooms telling us that we can't have action. And all for my life, General Secretaries are putting solicitors to tell us that we can't go on strike. For the first time in my history, we're bringing solicitors to tell us that we can go on strike, and they don't want to listen to them. that's taking place. So it's not going away, but I've got to tell you, from whatever union you're in, you're going to have to put pressure on your own particular union that this is falling through. Because we've got to see this through, and if for some reason people have got a principled reason why they can't support the general strike, but voted for it at the TUC, then they better go back to their constituents to determine the reasons why that are not even discuss the practicalities of it. Because these problems ain't going away, they're only just starting. Just look at the attacks that took place this week. You wouldn't believe for our members, particularly in RMT, FBU, CWU, shop workers and POA, we have what's the criminal injury compensatory board. That, for example, if a person jumps under a train, unfortunately, there's a suicide, a person gets assaulted at the platform, a postman or postwoman gets bit by a dog, shop worker gets attacked, prison officer gets attacked, there's a level of compensation. That's been basically done away with by this rotten lot. Done away with. By the way, don't see many Labour MPs jumping up saying it's wrong. Little particular group, our little group of RMCs, yes, do jump up. But you know, that's sunk its way through to the TUC this year. And the TUC announced that it had been withdrawn, and been withdrawn. It went through a special committee last week, a guillotine committee, and it was voted 9-7 in favour of pushing these cuts through. And it's going to go now in front of Parliament next week, Monday or Tuesday. That is to say to someone who has seen an horrific criminal act that there be no more compensation for you. That's what's taking place next week. Attack number one. Attack number two is going to affect every worker in Britain. Once again, I can't for the life of me understand why the TUC and the Labour Party ain't jumping up and down about it, because the Labour Party wants to keep it. Because there's an economic reason they're doing it. And that's the attacks on industrial tribunals. Workers for next year, who get sacked, and just to give you a simple statistic, last year 57,000 people applied to industrial tribunals. Out of the 57,000, 3,800 were successful. Out of the 3,800 successful, there was only 6 reinstatement orders, and there's not one law in the land that says they have to reinstate it. Do you know what the median compensation was for the 3,800 that won their tribunals? £4,652. Next year, that will mean that when you go to a tribunal, instead of slipping your form in to say that you're going to take the boss on, you'll have to put a £220 cheque with it straight away to the tribunal. Once you get your hearing date, a further 1,250 quid. So someone's got to put up 25% of what they might get if they're successful, where every 92 out of 100 cases that go into the industrial tribunal arena are lost. That's what's taking place next year on working men and working women. And also on top of that, where you have a small injury, e.g. up to 5,000 quid, which is a lot of injuries, broken finger, severed limb, you put in a claim, you win the claim, the member gets their 5,000 quid, and you get the cost back from the other side. As of next April, that finishes. There's no more costs awarded from the other side. So basically, the union has got to run everything, even though it finds the employer negligent of putting one of our people in harm, you can't claim a single penny back. And on top of that, it's going to be the consultation that's taking place on facility time, the consultation that's taking place on union learning funds, e.g. where people sometimes do union learning work, and when they've got a spare couple of hours, they go and do the rest of the industrial work. All that's under attack. Attack number 3, if you're lucky, there may be up to 1% with productivity pay next year. And on top of that, massive attacks on your pension fund, and on top of that as well, they're going to make you work longer to get the same pension. Or you're having kids on the dole of 18, 19 or 20 can't get a job, you're telling people at 65 they're going to work to 68. What an absolute nonsense when you've got kids, 1 in 4, who can't get a job. So brothers and sisters, the question's got to be put, what are we going to do about it? Are we just going to continue having meetings, and I'm all for that? Are we continue just to have demonstrations? Or are we going to say that on November the 14th, we should be lighting the fuse paper of saying to people, if you're taking action in Greece, Spain and other parts of Europe, then we've got to say that our New Year motto of 2013 is that we're going to have a general strike at some time in 2013. That's got to be our rallying call. some people in senior positions who don't think when January the 1st comes, we're only 2.5 years away from a general election. I've heard that for so long. I've heard that when the Tories were in, when we was told on those bleak years of Major and Thatcher, whatever we do, we must get the Tories out and Labour in. Then we had Labour for 13 years, now we have this crowd for 5 years. Point's got to be said, what would Labour do? My view, they would pick the industrial tribunals exactly as they are. They would pick pay freezes and they would carry on attacking pensions. You see, under capitalism, they apply certain rules, you know. See, under capitalism, if raw materials go up by 10%, the employers pay it. If fuel goes up by 5%, the employers pay it. But if workers ask for a 5% or a 10% pay rise, they will tell you they've got no money. And the simple reason is under capital, the employers don't mind giving other employers money because they're shoving the same money around to each other to the small, little elite group. That's what is under capital. I mean, Miliband says he wants responsible capitalism. Well, how can you have responsible capitalism? Capitalism operates on the basis that a small elite are looked after by the many. That you create a system of mass unemployment on one hand and anti-trade union laws on the other to emasculate workers fighting back. Therefore, brothers and sisters, we've got to start putting things into action. And I'm pleased to tell people here tonight that the United Campaign of Trade Union Law to repeal the trade union laws and the Liaison Committee for the Defence of Trade Unions will amalgamate, subject to the 2 AGMs that will be held on December the 6th, and there will be one united campaign in Britain to defend and repeal the anti-trade union laws. We need to repeal the anti-trade union laws. We need to go further. And we need to start giving support, particularly to our POA members who took unofficial action this year. Nothing was done about them because they was petrified of the unity that stood between POA workers. If they do it again, they might make a move on the POA. Might make it as an election kind of hiss that they're going to go and do something. Where are they going to put them? The only place I think. The only place I can think of now is the Olympic Stadium. I mean, no one's there. That's the only place big enough for us. Brothers and sisters, our position is pretty clear. We need mass unity now, meetings at the workplace, at the lunch breaks, educating workers about what these laws are about, the attacks that are taking place. We need to put further calls for our structures to those General Council members, and we go into 2013 saying there will be a general strike, and we're about time we got rid of this rotten government and we started getting rid of capitalist policies and putting policies in place for working men and working women. Thank you. Solidarity.